So as a sneakerhead, I'm sure you'll understand this, but there are those shoes that when you first see them online, you're like, yeah, I gotta grab that shoe. But then there are those other shoes that you don't really like when you see them online, but then when you get them in hand, you're like, nice, okay, these are better than I thought. Of course, there are those shoes that you just never like because you think that they're ugly or you just don't like the way that they fit, but there is actually a fourth category. And that fourth category are the shoes that you don't really like online, you don't really like them in hand, but then you get them on foot and you're like, now I get it. What's up everybody, I'm Seth Fowler, and today I'm reviewing the upcoming Off-White Nike Blazer Low. So obviously the release of this Nike Blazer Low is bittersweet, and that of course is because of Virgil Abloh's untimely passing at the end of last year. And because of Virgil's passing, Nike decided to postpone the release of this shoe, which originally was slated for the end of last year, till this year. And now finally, on April 8th, this shoe is releasing in two different colorways. So the two colorways of the shoe that are releasing are this black and electro green colorway, and also a white and varsity red colorway. And both colorways are releasing on the sneakers app and have a retail price of $140. And of course, if you want to grab either of these sneakers early, or maybe just check the resale price, I've made sure to leave an affiliate link to GOAT in the top of the description below. So I want to start off this review by explaining how I look at these sneakers and also some of the history behind these shoes. So if you're watching this video, I'm sure you're somewhat familiar with Virgil Abloh, Off-White, and of course Nike. And since 2017, almost 5 years ago at this point, Virgil Abloh and Nike have been releasing collaboration sneakers. In fact, the very first Off-White sneaker that I ever grabbed, which is probably one of my favorite sneakers of all time, is the Off-White Air Jordan 1 Chicago. And what makes this shoe even more special to me is that when I first got it, I was actually able to sit down with Virgil Abloh and pick his brain about his design process, and he also signed my pair, which for me was honestly like one of the coolest things ever, and is an experience that I will treasure forever. So this is my first experience in the Off-White Nike sneaker collaboration world, and over the last 5 years, you can really see a design change between the sneakers that he first released back in 2017 and the sneakers that are still releasing to this day. Granted, the sneakers that he released back in 2017 were absolutely experimental, but moving 5 years forward, the sneakers that are now releasing are even crazier. And while personally, this is not my own aesthetic, this is not something that I look at and go, wow, I've got to throw that on my foot. This is definitely wearable art and something that I really appreciate as an art piece, more so than just another pair of Nike sneakers that I grab at the Nike store. And I think whether you like the look of this shoe or not, there's definitely a case to be made that this is more of art than it is a sneaker. But at the end of the day, while I call it wearable art, it is still a sneaker, and it is still something that needs to function and be wearable. And because of that, we're going to look at this through a scope of wearable artwork that needs to be able to be wearable, if that makes sense. But before we get any deeper into the shoe itself, let's first take a look at the box. So if you're a fan of Off-White sneakers and Off-White Nike collaborations, you're probably familiar with this box and probably expected the box to look like this. As you can see, the box comes in a natural cardboard finish with the Nike logo printed on the top, and of course, your perforation holes throughout. I know this Swiss cheese box look is not for everybody, but it's definitely something Virgil Abloh liked, and he did on most of his boxes. On the back of the box, you've got the Off-White logo printed in green, a logo which actually wasn't found too often on previous Nike sneaker collaborations, but over time became more and more present on not only the boxes, but the sneakers themselves. As you can see through some of these Swiss cheese holes, you do have a custom Off-White paper, which I really like and really adds to the unboxing experience. And then finishing off the box, on one end, you've got the size tag. I obviously went with the size 9, which is my true size, and the official colorway of this shoe is black, electro green. Another detail that I found interesting on this box, and is also unique to this collaboration, I think, is that there are these sort of punched out perforations around the box, and there's also these printed details that look like they're supposed to be perforated. Now, I'm not sure exactly what the reason behind that is. I'm sure there's a story behind it or a reason behind it. I just don't know, but it is different from previous collaborations, so I did want to point it out. But with the box out of the way, let's get right back into the sneakers. So starting off from the toe of the sneaker, you've got this soft black leather, which actually has a pretty large punch out almost right through the center of the toe. It's a pretty wild detail, and it actually goes all the way through the upper of the shoe, unlike the Air Jordan 5s where there was still a mesh there, which you could cut out if you wanted to. This one, you don't have that choice. It's just an actual hole down to your foot, which, to be fair, makes this shoe have great ventilation. According to Nike, Virgil Abloh was heavily inspired by basketball, skateboarding, and trail running silhouettes, and so with these newer sneakers, he was really interested in combining those three categories together into new versions of each one of those shoes. And so throughout this review, you'll notice different details pulled from different sneakers. Running over the toe of the sneaker, you've got this bright green rope lace, which actually is anchored at the bottom part of the toe by this little lace loop. And like with a lot of other Virgil Abloh Nike collaborations, he utilized centralized double lacing system, this bright green lace on top, and then this more standard black flat lace underneath. From what I can tell, there's no functional reason for this outer lace. I think it's purely there for aesthetics and to give this shoe a cool sort of prototype look. And even though it's such a wild detail, it's something that I think we've all become used to because he's used it on so many other collaborations, most notably the off-white Nike Dunks. And in my opinion, on this black colorway, it brings this really nice pop of color, which I love, especially when you pair it with some nice neon green socks, like my Apothecary socks that I'm wearing in the on-feet portion of this video. And actually, we'll get to this a little bit later on in the video, but your sock preference and your sock choice is incredibly important on this shoe because there's a bunch of little holes that show everyone what you're wearing underneath the shoe. Moving up on the shoe, you get to these black flat laces that I mentioned earlier, and of course you've got the neon green laces overlapping them. Then underneath the laces, even though it's pretty difficult to see because there's so many laces, you've got a pretty standard black nylon tongue, and around the edge of the tongue, as with most other Nike Blazers and actually most other off-white collaborations, you've got this exposed foam. And then at the top of the tongue, you've got this bright white tag that is a Nike text in black, you've got a bright orange Nike swoosh, and then just below that you've got off written in black. And in my opinion, that's a super cool and subtle detail. It sort of switches out the air for the off detail. You wouldn't immediately know that this is an off-white tag unless you really read the text, and it's something that really holds true to the heritage of the sneaker, but also adds in some cool collaborative details. Weaving through the laces on the left shoe, you've got the signature off-white zip tie. In this case, it comes in black, and then part of the zip tie is actually flocked. If you're familiar with flocking, it's sort of a velvet finish done to the plastic itself. I'm not sure exactly why they decided to give it this finish. There's no text on it because apparently it's covered up by this sort of flocked velvety material. Not only that, this material really draws dust, so it gets dusty very, very quick. Even though I've had this shoe for like 4 hours, it's already crazy dusty. But I mean, just like with every other off-white zip tie, if you don't like it, you can remove it. It's just as easy as pulling out the laces and then pulling it off the laces. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of wearing my zip ties with my sneakers. I feel like it's a little bit too much extra crap on top of the shoe, but I understand if you like wearing them. I get that it's kind of a cool look, and honestly with this shoe it doesn't really detract or even add that much to the look of the sneaker because the top of the sneaker is black and the black zip tie just kind of falls right into place. A detail that I actually just forgot to mention, but I'm going to mention now, is that at the end of both sets of laces you have the word shoelaces printed in either black or white depending on the color of the laces. Kind of an expected detail at this point, but one that I still really like. And then moving inside the sneaker, you've got this black padded mesh sock liner which has holes through it. So it's not going to have the best padding towards the heel, but it's still soft in the areas that it has padding. And then finally, rounding off the inside of the shoe, you've got a black insole with some off-white details printed on the heel in white. Now when it comes to sizing and fit, the off-white Nike Blazer lows do seem to fit true to size. In fact, they fit just like every other pair of Nike Blazers. Now because this shoe is a limited collaboration, you probably won't have a chance to try this sneaker on before you buy it. So if you do want to make sure that you're grabbing the best size for you, I'd either go true to size or try on a different pair of Nike Blazers because again, they fit pretty much the same. And also Nike sizing is usually pretty on point. I never have trouble when it comes to Nike sizing. I have trouble with other brands, but not so much Nike. Continuing back in the shoe, you've got more black leather covering a majority of the upper of the sneaker. Towards the bottom of the upper, you've got this black sort of fabric or canvas piece of material, which is actually pretty difficult to see unless you look at the sneaker close up. I think on other colorways of this shoe, you can see it, especially on that white varsity red colorway. You can definitely see that detail. But on this black shoe, all the textural details kind of just fade into the sneaker because it's just one shade of black. And I've got to be honest, if I could have redone things, I probably would have grabbed the white varsity red colorway because I like that more classic white and red look, especially with that aged midsole. This black colorway, while still very clean and while probably more wearable than the other colorway, is not something I like as much. I don't know, it's just a personal thing, but I just prefer that white and red one. Of course, as you can see, throughout the upper of the shoe, you've got more of these punch outs. Some of them are sort of cut in half because they hit the midsole of the shoe. Other ones are full circular punch outs. And what's interesting is that through these punch outs, you can actually see the tongue of the sneaker because obviously they're holes through the upper. And again, you've got to be careful about what kind of socks you're wearing, and hopefully you're wearing socks because you see them through these holes. Personally, I'd recommend a pair of Apothecary socks, which you can grab through my link in the top of the description below. Apothecary is my sock brand that I started a couple years ago. But seriously, sock choice with this shoe is very important. Continuing back even farther on the shoe, you've got this very skinny black Nike swoosh, which also comes in leather. And then towards the back of the Nike swoosh, you've got this little sort of thin plastic tab, which is found on every off-white sneaker collaboration. However, on this shoe, it's not done in a contrasting color, it's done in black, which is kind of weird. I would have thought that they would have done it in like a neon green or an orange, just so that it pops out from the side of the shoe, but apparently on this colorway, they wanted to go with black, which is weird because in the white colorway, I think they went with blue or orange or something that really pops. So not sure exactly why they did that, but they did. Moving around to the inside or medial side of the sneaker, you've got that off-white text printed towards the heel in white. On this shoe, the text reads, "Off-white for Nike, Nike Blazer Low, Beaverton, Oregon, USA, C 1977, which of course is the year that this shoe first released. Well, I guess the Nike Blazers released, not this particular collaboration. I've always really liked this paragraph. It just adds some interest to the side of the sneaker, especially on the side of the sneaker that most people don't usually see because it's on the inside of your feet. It's a nice touch. I really like it. Then moving around to the heel of the shoe, you've got that punch out in the lateral side that I mentioned earlier. You've got this black leather panel that has Nike debossed into it. And then towards the top of the ankle on the medial side, you've actually got this piece of mesh. Not sure exactly why it's there, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was a carryover from the Nike Blazer Lows. Then moving down on the sneaker to the front half of the midsole, you've got this pretty standard Nike Blazer heavily textured vulcanized midsole. The midsole comes in black rubber and really from the front of the shoe looks like a standard pair of Nike Blazers. But then you move towards the back of the shoe and you get to the most eye-catching detail on this entire collaboration. And that, of course, is this crazy spiky heel. So this heel portion was taken from the Nike Air Terra Humara, and this is one of those details that I was talking about where Virgil wanted to combine multiple different styles of sneakers together. This is literally combining the Nike Blazer, which is a basketball and then I guess skateboarding shoe, with a trail sneaker. And according to Nike, he actually went to the Nike designers and asked them if he could use the actual tooling from the Nike Air Terra Humara, but obviously it looks like they couldn't do exactly that and instead created a variant or a version of that and just kind of glued it onto the back of a Nike Blazer Low. Now let's just be honest here. This detail is weird. It's different. It's not something that I think a lot of people love. Obviously, it's more of an experimental detail. It's something that Virgil Abloh really wanted to try. And I really thought that maybe because this is a newer Nike sneaker, they might have tried to hide some React in there or something. But no, it's just purely a molded piece of rubber that looks like the Nike Air Terra Humara attached to the back of a Nike Blazer Low. It's different. It absolutely fits with Virgil Abloh's experimentation of mashing multiple sneakers together, similar to Sacai actually, but it's not something that I love personally. I will say though that this detail makes this sneaker an eye-catching silhouette. I mean, this is absolutely a shoe that people will stare at when you walk by them. And actually something else that I'm thinking about now and something else that I thought about with the Nike Sacai's, the very first ones that released the LD Waffles, is that because this heel is so, I guess, extended out from the back of the shoe, there's a good chance someone might flat tire you pretty easily. If anyone walks within like a foot of you, you're getting flat tired, no question. Well, actually, to be fair, the spike is pretty sharp. You might actually be able to impale people if they piss you off. Ow. It's not actually that sharp. Something else that's kind of interesting about this heel portion is that because it's one solid piece of rubber, it makes the back of the shoe pretty heavy. Like not unbearably heavy, but definitely heavier than I would have expected. Also, through these holes, you can actually see through to the Blazer midsole underneath. So they literally just glued this rubber onto the heel of the shoe. This is not co-molded with this vulcanized midsole, which makes sense because vulcanization is this whole process that you can't really do stuff like this with, so they'd have to actually adhere it to the back of the shoe somehow, but it's weird. And honestly, I wonder if I could just take this part off and just see what the shoe would look like without it. That might actually be a fun video. Let me know if you guys want to see that in the comment section down below. It's not my favorite detail on the shoe, but it absolutely makes it unique and definitely fits with Virgil Abloh's vision. Oh, and unfortunately, this heel portion does not add to the comfort of the shoe. In fact, I'd argue that it takes away from it. Not by much. It doesn't make the shoe any less wearable than a standard pair of Nike Blazer Lows, but it makes the heel of the shoe a little bit heavier, and there's also now a weapon on the back of your foot. As far as the colors used on the heel portion of the shoe, it comes in primarily black rubber with this orange splatter print, and then in the midfoot you've got this bright blue hit, and then towards the heel you've got this neon green hit, which unfortunately does not match perfectly with the neon green laces. I wish that they did. It would make the shoe look a little bit more cohesive, but it doesn't, so it is what it is. But then, ow. But then finally moving to the bottom of the shoe, you've got your standard Nike Blazer outsole. And because this heel portion extends so far off of the back of the shoe, they do kind of do you a solid by sweeping up the heel portion of the shoe so it doesn't hit the ground whenever you're walking. It's an appreciated detail. It's necessary also. So overall, should you grab the off-white Nike Blazer Low? In my opinion, if you like the way the shoe looks, if you appreciate Virgil Abloh and you want to grab a piece of his art, genuinely, then I would grab this shoe. I think this shoe is definitely worth it, especially for the $140 retail price point. And honestly, resale prices aren't even that bad. I grabbed this shoe like a week early, to be fair, for more than I would have liked to have paid, but really not a huge amount over retail. And even looking at the resale prices now, they're like maybe $50 to $100 over retail price, which for an off-white pair of sneakers is actually a pretty good deal. So while yes, this shoe is polarizing, and while yes, wearability might be somewhat compromised by the weapon on the back of the shoe, it's still a sneaker that I think a lot of people will like. like, even if it's just for the name Off-White, and something that I think will absolutely sell out and sell out very quickly. Now, as far as availability, I have no idea how many pairs of these they made. I would assume not too many pairs, but I also don't think it's gonna be like an impossible sneaker to get. And if you wanna grab a pair of these, again, these release on April 8th on the Nike Sneakers app and probably at some local sneaker boutiques in your area if you live near some local sneaker boutiques. But now, gotta be careful about that. But now I would love to know your thoughts on the upcoming Off-White Nike Blazer Lows and whether this is a shoe that you like or whether this is one that you're gonna steer clear of. So make sure to let me know in the comment section down below. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't yet, and I'll see you all in the next one.